Okay, in this video we're looking at some other factors that will impact our international competitiveness, and then talking about how international competitiveness helps to boost our growth and our productive capacity. So the first one is relative rates of inflation. When you're talking about relative rates of inflation, it's important to recognise that we're looking at Australia's inflation rate compared to foreign countries, that should say countries, and that determines our international competitiveness. So when we're looking at what impacts the inflation rate in Australia, that can be affected by a whole range of things, including productivity, production costs, and the availability of natural resources, as well as the exchange rate. And these all play a part in influencing our international competitiveness. So, firstly, a low inflation rate relative to other countries helps to promote international competitiveness of our tradable sector, because our export prices become relatively cheaper, and import prices become relatively more expensive compared to Australian products. That should lead to an increase in demand for good Australian goods and services, and help to increase net export demand and boost aggregate demand, economic growth and living standards. So the low rate of inflation is a really current factor you could talk about too, that's helping to boost our international competitiveness at the moment. Other factors, innovation. So the more money we spend on research and development and innovation should come up with ideas for new products and different ways for making goods and services, and this can all help to give us a competitive advantage against other countries and allows us to sell our products cheaper in local and international markets. So Australia spends less than 1.2% of our GDP on innovation, and that potentially is a negative factor. Government spending on education is another one. That helps to boost creativity and innovation, which again helps to reduce production costs and makes us more competitive. At the moment, we are being overtaken by countries which are spending more and more on innovation. Rates of company tax. So company tax rates impact firms' after-tax profits, and basically the higher the company tax rate, the more companies are being taxed, and therefore they generally like to increase their prices to maintain their profit margins. So higher taxes generally lead to higher prices. So when you're linking the company tax rate to international competitiveness, talk about the fact that higher taxes mean that firms have to charge higher prices, which reduces our competitiveness. Australia's corporate tax rate has fallen from around 30% to 27.5%, and that has helped to make us more competitive. The other reason why lower company tax rates make us more competitive is because it gives firms more money or profits available to spend on technology and equipment. So the less we're being taxed, the more money they've got left over for those things, and that can help to boost our productivity and our competitiveness as well. Higher corporate tax rates mean firms have to charge higher prices, and they're less likely to invest, which makes us less internationally competitive. 27.5% is a relatively high corporate tax rate compared to many other countries. And government subsidies. Government subsidies are designed to reduce firms' costs of production, and they are designed to promote structural change and reduce firms' costs of production. Subsidies allow businesses to charge lower prices, which can then help to keep infant industries in operation, so it helps to boost the international competitiveness of young industries that are trying to establish themselves. In terms of international competitiveness and the macroeconomic goals, so the improvement in international competitiveness occurs because of lower prices, so that should help to reduce price stability or promote the goal of price stability. The reduction in prices will reduce the rate of inflation and help to achieve that goal. The lower prices or increase in quality will enable Australian businesses to gain a bigger share of the market, which should help to boost aggregate demand. Okay, this is an expansion in demand and achieve stronger growth. In terms of our productive capacity, whenever we are able to boost our productive capacity, this should help to promote strong and sustainable growth and full employment. So if increased international competitiveness is a result of increased productivity or an increase in the availability of natural resources, these both help to boost our productive capacity. So ways to increase productivity like education and investment in new technologies, as well as the discovery of new natural resources, can help to boost our productive capacity. Boosting our productive capacity helps to achieve high rates of economic growth without inflationary pressures. So it allows for an environment with low inflation and high growth. The downward pressure on prices boosts aggregate demand because there's increased net exports. It also creates jobs, which creates consumption and investment. So boosting our productive capacity is really important for keeping prices down, boosting international competitiveness, making firms more willing to supply, and boosting our real GDP. Growth becomes more sustainable as it's occurring alongside lower inflationary pressures. So unlike demand-side growth, which can lead to capacity constraints, boosting our productive capacity can lead to long-term sustainable growth. Higher levels of AD and real GDP help to boost the derived demand for labour. So again, the lower prices help to boost the demand for labour, which reduces unemployment and pushes us towards our goal of full employment. Just to note, some ways that we boost our productive capacity, like higher participation rates, can lead to jobless growth, as well as productivity improvements that can lead to more unemployment. So boosting our productive capacity through higher participation, through immigration, all those factors can actually lead to more unemployment in the short term because there's more competition for jobs, or we need less workers. So it's the long term that's more relevant. Also, ways to boost your international competitiveness can hurt unemployment in the short term. So if firms invest in like structural reforms or microeconomic reforms designed to boost efficiency, they can have negative impacts for unemployment in the short term. So for example, firms may restructure to become more competitive, which can involve making some workers redundant and increase structural unemployment in the short term. In the long term, the idea is that increased efficiency helps to boost output and demand for goods and services, which then helps to boost demand for labour or workers as well. It can lead to some workers having skills that are outdated as we invest in certain areas or specialise in areas of comparative advantage. So in the short term, it can lead to more unemployment because of structural reforms and microeconomic reforms, which can lead to replacing labour with capital, or ways to boost productivity, which can also lead to less need for workers. Overall, a boost in international competitiveness should help to boost our living standards, but despite some possible negative short-term impacts because of higher unemployment, but overall, increased productivity leads to lower prices, higher incomes, and increased incomes and increased employment throughout the economy. It'll boost our GDP per capita, and Australians will be able to have access to more goods and services, which is all about what international competitiveness and what living standards is all about. Thank you.